Sometimes you gotta walk into your own intro music. Like, if there isn't any intro music playing, you gotta. Sometimes you just gotta make your own. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I got a little bit too much shadow on the side of my face. That probably didn't change anything. Welcome back. Hope that you're having a lovely day as we embark on a full album listen this wonderful morning that it is, at least for me right now. We're going to listen to Tubeway Army. We're going to listen to the album Replicas, which was released in 1979. Why am I listening to this particular album? Well, I heard a lot about it. It was recommended to me. And this is the band that Gary Numan came from. I've never listened to any music from Gary Numan. As far as I know, there's always a possibility. But I've heard a lot about him. Heard a lot about this band. And it was just time to embark on the journey. It was just time to go ahead and dive straight on in. Let me pull up the recommendations of people who recommended this band. That would be G. Hitchens, Frugal Severin, Oron O. Montreal, Fortune Agent, Onsazi Jew, Yoke Sagoth, I think you mentioned the band as well, Stephen Bennett, and the list goes on from there. Green Dragon Reprised, Rui Pina. It just keeps on going. So I'm actually really excited to listen to the band. Once again, I don't know what to expect really from Tubeway Army, from Gary Numan, from anything. And that's kind of the fun part of doing this whole channel, you know? So let's just go ahead and start with the first track here, which is going to be Me, I Disconnect You. And we'll talk about it after. Let's go. Okay, this is a good opener. This is just the first track on the album, and I'm really curious, of course, to hear where the rest of the album goes from here. I'm really liking that synth line that just kind of throughout the whole song. The vocals and actually the direction of the song is very like new wave-ish kind of synth poppy. So actually, let me look at the album here really quick, and it is actually synth pop new wave. Okay, but I really like it. Has like a little bit of a minimalist style to it. Like, it's not as deconstructed as, like, for example, Devo, but it's not, like, overtly like a big synth pop sound, perhaps just in a way like Duran Duran. Like, it's somewhere kind of in the middle ground, and it just leaves me curious as to where the rest of the album is going to go from there. So, I kind of want to just actually move on to the next track, actually, before I form an opinion on it. But talking about the lyrics, Me, I Disconnect From You, which actually, looking at the album cover, I think it's a really cool album cover, because I don't know if this is Gary Numan on the cover or just someone used for the photograph, but I like how they're facing one way, very nonchalantly, very emotionless, and their reflection is looking back at them. That's kind of cool. And there's kind of like a feeling of isolation and loneliness there as well. Like he wants to go out, and perhaps he was ready to go out, especially due to the attire, but for some reason he's not going out tonight. I don't know. The lyrics, though. The alarm rang for days, you could tell from conversations. I was waiting by the screen, I couldn't recognize my photograph. Me, I disconnect from you. Now, at first when I'm reading this, Me, I disconnect from you, like another person, could it be disconnecting from himself? This kind of, I don't want to say identity crisis, but something disassociative, especially because of the album cover, maybe. I was walking up the stairs, something moved in silence. I could feel his mind decaying. Only inches away from me, and I disconnect from you. Please don't turn me off. I don't know what I'm doing outside. Me and the telephone that never rings. If you were me, what would you do? Me, I disconnect from you. I'm feeling kind of like a self-disassociative kind of feeling going on. A kind of a sense of, or a loss, I should say, a loss of identity in a sense. I don't know. That's what I'm kind of feeling. I want to listen to the next track to kind of see where it goes and get a better feel for this. We're going to listen to the whole album. But before I kind of like start making an opinion, I want to hear how this develops. So let's keep on going. Let me back it up just a wee bit. Let's move on to the next track here, pulling it up, which is going to be Our Friends Electric. Okay. We'll let it fade in. What a cool track this one is. So I love the sound of the synth and the guitar and just the wave of electric that it sends over with the music. Bum, bum, wow, wow, bum, bum, wow, wow. It almost has a kind of languid energy in the way that the whole track moves, even kind of relating to the last one, the first one on the album. Like it's moving very static. In a sense, it feels cold, but it's not necessarily minimalistic. So this may be a reach, but hear me out. The music kind of, I shouldn't say the music itself, but maybe the composition of it, the repetitiveness of it, kind of reminds me of Kraftwerk in a sense. Except Kraftwerk, at least what I've heard, they're a little bit more minimalistic. I would say they're a lot more robotic and in a sense colder. This has those same movements, but just packed with a little bit more punch, especially like I said, because of that guitar and the way that it fills in alongside with the synth. Newman himself, because I see that he is not only the vocalist, but he is handling the keyboard, the synths, and the guitars in this album. So he has he has an interesting kind of voice in the way that he's singing in here. In some ways, it reminds me of Thomas Dolby. Sometimes he sings, sometimes he speaks, but his voice carries a certain weight in his message and the way that he's delivering everything. It is a little bit robotic, but in some ways it's not. You know, that's why I'm kind of getting a Kraftwerk-esque kind of feeling from the music, but not, you know, not enough to really relate or compare the two whatsoever. And then I like how the bass is just thumping behind on top of dun 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 wow, dun 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 wow. It's like a cool synth rock kind of sound. This is what I would kind of think when I'm thinking of like a synth rock. Yeah, there's a synth pop sound to it, but it does kind of rock a little bit in its own evenly paced, static kind of way. I like that a lot, actually. Let's get into these lyrics on this one. It's cold outside and the paint's peeling off my walls. There's a man outside in a long coat, gray hat, smoking a cigarette. Now the light fades out and I wonder what I'm doing in a room like this. There's a knock on the door and just for a second I thought I remembered you. So now I'm alone, now I can think for myself about little deals and SUs and things that I just don't understand. Like a white lie at night or a sly touch at times, I don't think it meant anything to you. So we're talking about a relationship, once again kind of talking about this disconnect. So I open the door. It's the friend that I'd left in the hallway. Please sit down. A candlelit shadow on a wall near the bed. You know I hate to ask, but our friend's electric. Only mine's broke down, and now I've no one to love. So the name of the song, Our Friend's Electric, the question posed here, at least what it makes me think of is, can a friendship or a relationship be rekindled, in a sense be recharged? Our friend's electric in the sense that you can at least put new batteries in them and we can like be friends, be in a relationship again. Or is this relationship so far gone for whatever reasons that there's no chance of reviving this dead battery, so to speak? That's at least what kind of like what I'm feeling listening to the music. So I found out your reasons for the phone calls and smiles and it hurts and I'm lonely. And I should have never tried and I missed you tonight, so it's time to leave. You see, it meant everything to me. So yeah, a breakdown in a relationship, a chance and a try, an attempt being made to perhaps rekindle it, but at the end of the day, left alone again. And I see that this was a single and the single from the album, and it reached #1 in the UK charts, staying there for 4 weeks. That's pretty good. That's pretty good also, yeah. Just looking here on the Wikipedia page for the song, Newman commented on the song's lyrics, all my early songs were about being alone or misunderstood. As a teenager, I had been sent to a child psychiatrist and put on medication. I had Asperger's and saw the world differently. I immersed myself in sci-fi writers, Philip K. Dick, J.G. Ballard. The lyrics came from short stories I'd written about what London would be like in 30 years. These machines, friends, come to the door. They supply services of various kinds, but your neighbors never know what they really are since they look human. Okay, this takes a much more sci-fi kind of turn then. The one in the song is a prostitute, hence the inverted commas. Maybe I missed that. It was released in May 1979, sold 1 million copies. I had a #1 single about a song about a robot prostitute and no one knew. That is hilarious, and that actually gives a lot more depth to the lyrics. Oh, our friend's electric. Okay, okay, okay. It's a sex bot. Okay, okay, okay. Interesting. Okay, that actually that. Let me check something before we move on to the next track. Hold on, hold on. I just need to check something before we move forward. There it is. A loose concept album, Replicas, was based on a dystopian book Newman hoped to eventually complete, set in the not too distant future metropolis where machmen, androids with cloned human skin, and other machines kept the general public cowed on orders from the gray men, shadowy officials. Okay. So there is a little bit of a loose concept going on here. That's going to help a little bit, I'm sure, as we move further into the album. So in doing so, let's move on into the next track, which is going to be the machmen, which are these I guess officials that are watching over everybody. Let's go. What a catchy little riff on this track. What I think is really cool is that in this track, it's primarily the guitar that's leading instead of the synth sounds, which, yeah, I like that. But here the synths are more relegated to just a few in the chorus there, just kind of like to give the music that extra push in just those moments. But besides that, it's just a straight rock and roll fest. I may be alone on this again. It's not the first time I've been alone in my opinions. But is there a Bowie connection to Gary Newman? Is there a Bowie connection to Tubeway Army? Because not necessarily his voice, but the manner in which he sings kind of reminds me of Bowie a little bit. For some reason, the music is making me feel like this is something Bowie would embark on as well. I know we just listened to Scary Monsters a while back, but there's something about this that just I can't help but feel some sort of Bowie connection with the music. And I'm not sure exactly what that is, but I like it. So there's that. But yeah, I like how this kind of breaks up the synth sound so it doesn't sound so samey on the album. And like I said, with that riff, it's very catchy, it stays in your mind, and they just elaborate around that musically. So I think that's pretty nice. I like that. I saw him turn on I saw him turn on like a machine in the park, saying, "Please come with me." But you've been there before. I saw him whir away into the night like a nightmare on wheels, saying never again. So this is the macmen, or the macman, looking and watching over him and his activities. His rendezvous that he just had, his electric rendezvous. I'd given it all up for you. I'd even be a number just for you. The strangest living boy you could ever wish to see, that's me. Yellow newspapers tell the story of someone. Do you know this man? Tomorrow the cure. Only police ever see nighttime for real. Turn on the light and cry no more, no more. I was standing outside your door waiting for the gray man to go when my mind turned on me with a vengeance and I had never known. My own. Everyone heard the voice on the radio saying, why move around and waste my time? There are no independents anymore. The tape is a circle, but who really cares? I saw you behind the wall. I even heard you laugh at me. You disgust me tonight with your answer to something new. That's you. So he's watching the gray man outside. The gray man apparently said, like, come with me. But he doesn't go with him. And I think the perspective might even change. Because at the end he's like, I think this is the Mac man saying you disgust me tonight with your answer to something new. I don't know. I'm losing the grip on the concept a little bit. Just a little bit. But I'm liking the music a lot. Like, it's one of those things where, like, I would like to be able to follow this loose concept, or at least have an idea of where it's going. But the music is kicking, so I'm kind of like, okay, either way. You know? Yeah, let's just move on to the next track. Maybe as we get further along, we'll be provided some answers, or maybe I'll just figure it out. The next track, Praying to the Aliens. Okay, we are really moving into this sci-fi concept. I like that. Let's see. Praying to the Aliens. Let's go. Praying to the Aliens is a lot more stripped down than the previous tracks. It feels a lot more bare. It has a lot more space to kind of play around with. And what I like is in the atmosphere of that stripped down soul that we have going on, you have those squiggly, satellite like atmospheric sounds that are just kind of. That's the sound that in my mind it's making. It's like little satellites. That kind of goes through. And then you have some colorful little bass fills as well in that bass line in the back of it. The bass is being played. Hold on. That's going to be Paul Gardner on the bass. And I like how he just fills in, well, like I said, a little bit of vibrancy in the dead air of the music. This one's primarily like Newman singing on this one and then kind of giving that charge within the hits of the music. So he kind of like hits on the hits with the music. And then once again, like I said, mentioning that dead air, leaving that atmosphere for either Gardner to do a little bass fill or for those synths to just kind of trickle up and bubble up from the ground in there. This one I don't love as much. I'll admit I don't love this one as much, but it's not bad though. Slowly the thought, there is no one to replace, came into view and he began to cry. Now only boys that love only boys, the perfect picture of a boy-girl age. I'm praying to the aliens, praying to the aliens. Gray overcoat, and he could be anyone. A random poll check, do you ever think of women? They broke him down into a torn old queen, living somewhere between dead and dying. I'm praying to the aliens, praying to the aliens. There are no more, do you begin to see? The corner of my eye could give me away. Isn't it strange how times change? I can't imagine living any other way. I'm praying to the aliens. So, is there something happening in society that he's possibly, I don't know, praying to the aliens? I when I think of someone praying to the aliens, you could be praying to aliens to save humanity because humanity is destroying itself. Like, please come down and teach us your intergalactic ways and make us better. But I kind of think of it as like, just destroy us all. like humanity is a scourge on the earth, a virus, as Agent Smith said. Humans are a virus, and you're praying to the aliens, just come down, wipe us out, and just be done with it. But the question is why? There is no one to replace, came into view, and he began to cry. I'm trying to figure out why he's saying. Gray overcoat, he could be anyone. Like there's a kind of paranoia, perhaps talking about the machmen, who could be anyone in the crowd because it's very hard to differentiate between humans and robots based on the concept that we read about in the beginning. Maybe something like that. Once again, I'm kind of getting this paranoia, but even to a deeper degree of, it's getting so bad here. Aliens need to come out and just like help us out. just please do something for us here because we can't handle it ourselves. Something of that nature. But I hope I'm kind of correct in kind of getting into like the whole, the sci-fi element that we read, but also this kind of disconnect in society and interpersonal kind of disconnection from each other, which of course you could argue 1979, way ahead of its time, especially in lieu of technology and how things are now with technology. So let's move on to the next track here, which is going to be Down in the Park, which I guess you could say that he did leave his house, depending on where this song goes. Will good things happen? Will bad things happen? Maybe I won't even know. But we'll listen together and talk about it. Let's go. I like this track a lot already. So, we're pretty much about halfway through now in the album, and at least on a first listen, I can already tell you that Down in the Park is my favorite track next to Friends Electric. This one, the synths are so warm, they're extremely enveloping, and I love the way that they break away and then you get into the keyboard. I really like that. Newman's vocal performance, I really like the way that he's singing in here as well. I think it really lends itself, especially lyrically, to this very strong dystopian vibe where it's just so cold and dark and mechanical. And I'm talking themes and lyric-wise. that it kind of contrasts with the kind of nocturnal nightly setting that at least the music is putting me in, and looking at this park at night where all these really interesting things are. And I can understand why perhaps he wouldn't want to go out to the park, which actually, now that I'm looking at the album cover, he is looking at the park down below there, which is I like that a lot. Kind of tie it in all together. I like that. But yeah, Newman sounds really good on here, and I love the way that the drums come back in after that instrumental space, and then jumps in. That's really good. That is extremely catchy, very melodic. The drums, hold on. The drums are going to be by Jess Lydiard, which, by the way, the band is a three-piece, which I think is also very impressive. They get a really nice sound just out of three people. Of course, Gary Newman handling a lot of the instruments in there, but not everything. And I think they all do a good job of kind of rounding each other out, getting into a certain groove, and then just letting that groove ride and letting that machine roll on. This is, to me, like, I don't want to say the best track yet, but it's my favorite track so far. Down in the Park, where the machmen meet the machines and play Kill by Numbers. Down in the park with a friend called Five. I was in a car crash, or was it the war? But I'd never been quite the same. Little white lies like I was there. And I do remember he mentioned before in one of the previous tracks about why do we say, or why do we tell little white lies at night, which kind of relates right here. So yeah, you definitely don't want to be in the park at night, because the machmen are out and they're playing Kill by Numbers. There's a lot of bad stuff going in there. Come to Zomzoms, a place to eat, like it was built in one day. You can watch the humans trying to run. Oh look, there's a rape machine. I'd go outside if it looked the other way. You wouldn't believe the things they do. I mean, I would believe the things they do because it's in the name of the machine. The question is, thinking about this dystopian story and the themes, why was this machine built in the first place? What is the purpose? Is it to instill fear? Is it to keep people out of the park? I mean, the machmen are already down there killing people. And the way that he says that line, it's once again a little bit distanced. Like, it's just another day. It's just another night in the park. It's nothing unusual. And he even says you can watch the humans trying to run. You know how, like, sometimes you'll go somewhere and you'll just people watch, just to watch what's going on and that kind of thing? He's basically describing that, but with something a lot darker. That's interesting. I think that's actually pretty cool. Like, the dystopian ideas that we're kind of treading into. Down in the park where the chant is death, 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 until sun cries morning. Down in the park with friends of mine, we're not lovers, we are not romantics, we are here to serve you. A different face, but the words never change. So I guess this could also, once again, kind of relate to the robots, the flesh on them changing, kind of like the Terminators and, you know, different robots in sci-fi movies and such, and how the flesh can change, but the words, the machine underneath is still the same, doing and saying the same things. That's a cool song. That's a cool song with some really interesting lyrics. Let's go ahead and move on into the next track here, which is going to be, hold on, You Are in My Vision. Let's go. There you go, back to that rock sound. That sounds like the Ramones. Nice track. This track kind of returns to that guitar-led straight rock and roll that we heard previously before, with the synth really just providing this really light undercurrent in the music. It's almost like a light alarm. It never quite gets to that wow, like an air raid siren, but it just kind of like wafts in the undercurrent. This one is really catchy. This one I can hear being an earworm from the guitar riff, da-dun, 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 da-dun. And then the bass just kind of flowing once again, kind of underground beneath it all. But then it's that vocal delivery on the chorus where he's saying, "You are in my vision," and then the delivery changes on the next line. "I can't turn my face." So it's really cool how it has that nice duality in the chorus to make it really catchy, at least to me, especially with that guitar riff. Like I said, it's very punky, but I can't get that out of my mind. I'm still hearing it echoing right now. Da 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 Da, 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 da. Right? Like, that's kind of a catchy rhythm. I like that. It keeps it interesting, as repetitive as it is. That's really nice. I like that. I like these guitar-led tracks, or these kind of, back off on the synth, pop off on the guitar kind of tracks, because, like I mentioned before, it really does break up the album, and it doesn't make it sound as samey. It doesn't make it. It makes it sound consistent. Definitely, that's a good word, but it doesn't make it sound like we're hearing the same song over and over and over again. It actually does a really nice job of kind of making it not sound monotonous at all. It keeps us exciting. It keeps it really fresh. Fade to scenes of violence like a TV screen, but silent, where the victims are all paid by the hour. I like how, as you're reading the lyrics, like that one, like, you could at first just read the first line and saying, okay, dystopian society, sci-fi, there's a lot of violence on the TV. But then you read the next line where the victims are all paid by the hour, and it just adds this other level of insincerity and, like, lack of truth in the news and stuff that's being delivered to them. Interesting. Staring at the ceiling. Why did I like that? Staring at the ceiling as she gyrates all around me. I am trying to forget she's done this all before. Far too many people for a quiet night with myself. Oh, I could be anyone tonight. Focus on a feeling I've detected while I'm sleeping. Sing a chorus of On Broadway and deny it. You are in my vision. I can't turn my face. You are in my vision. I can't move my eyes. You are in my vision. I can't move at all. You are in my vision. So is he out somewhere? I'm imagining, he went out to the park. I'm imagining he's out somewhere. There's a lot of people around him. There's someone dancing around him, perhaps in a club of some sort. But for some reason, he can't turn his head, move his eyes. He just keeps this person in their vision, or in his vision. Delicate bodies that decay beneath their clothing. That's a good way to describe humans. Beautiful bodies that decay underneath their clothing. That's a good line. Play cards in an empty house in Paris. The wreckage of a hero lies broken in a corner, and everyone pretends they like to live that way. Pretend it's all fun, but no one's really enjoying it. So I think, once again, he's just kind of people watching. He's forced himself to go out, and he's just kind of observing people and what they're doing. He's kind of having a few deep thoughts that are really nicely written, and I think he's ready to go back home. I don't think he's having a great time being out. Let's go ahead and move on to the next track, which is going to be the title track of the album, Replicas. Hold on. Is it Replicas or Replicants or something? Replicants. From Blade Runner. I think that's what they're called, right? Hold on. Not Bald Runner. Blade Runner. Replicant? Yeah, Replicants, yeah. All right. Those are like the robot guys, the androids, I believe. I don't know. I saw Blade Runner a very, very long time ago, and I don't remember a thing about it. And I mean, like, a long time ago. I wasn't ready to watch films like that, Anyways, next track. Boom.
But they didn't even try.
I like that guitar line.
And they lit the other line.
Kind of a cool trick that's going on throughout that track is that, at least to my ears, it sounds like at certain moments within the track, the music actually begins to drag. And I mean, like, drag by 0.00010 seconds. Like, it just, like, slightly elongates itself, and then it pulls itself back together. Like a rubber band. Like, you pull it out, stretch it out, and then you let go, and slowly it catches up to itself, except it's done a lot quicker in a much more succinct amount of time there. You especially, and obviously heard it there at the end, but on a first listen, it sounds like it happens at least 2 other times in the music itself. This one is so depressing. This one is electric depression. Plug it into me directly, flip the switch, and I'm sad boy. But the guitar and the synths, I love it in this track. Is it a chorus even? It's not really a chorus. No, it's just a straight through track. But just that melody. It's exciting because I love the notes and I love how it's being played and the tone of the synth and the guitar. But at the same time, it's played so rhythmically and tempo slow that it's like dragging and it feels more like heartache to me. and kind of relating to the lyrics, I think. But just that melody. I'm so bad when I do that. That melody, and then you go lower. And then the guitar. And it kind of follows through after with the synth. Like, I just think that that's really unique. And the very, very heavy step of the drum and bass combination. Ba-dun, ba-dun, ba-dun. That must be so annoying when I do that. When I try to emulate a melody I'm hearing in a song, and I have to do, I sound like a cat in heat. But yeah, I do like this track, and I do think that it works really well, especially within the album. It's just like it drags, and I don't necessarily mean that in like a bad way, because I like what's being done in here. But it's a song that like pulls back the energy. It's an energy suck. It's a fun vampire, and just leads you to a little bit of depression. Let's talk about the depression. It was hard to avoid, I suppose it was the shame, but they didn't even try. You see, we'd never met, and they didn't have names. There was nothing I could do. So I turned on the crowd, and I screamed, you and you. It could have been you. And they seemed to think that I looked that way, or maybe I was wrong. So I said, do you know Mr. Wall? And they looked the other way, and then they smiled at me. But the police came, and I said it was me, and I just walked away. So I'm getting deep settled, deeply like alienation, isolation, just wants to be loved, just wants to be around people, just wants to be friends, just wants to have friends, just wants to find love vibes from the music, from the perspective that we've been given. And he says he sees these two people, and it sets up like, he found two people that were cheating on him or something like that. But he says he doesn't even know their names, and that they never even met. So he's feeling like a deep kind of like I understand like a depression and a heartbreak, even though he's never even met these people or doesn't even know their names. He has no connection to them perhaps whatsoever. But he just wants to be connected to someone so bad that he's hurting himself over people he's never even met before. And then he turns on the crowd about it. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and even in some of the more like conflictual moments in here, the music slightly changes, adds a little bit more of the synth atmospheres in there to kind of give it just a little bit more of a lending hand into what the themes are here. And I just think it's really interesting, this whole disconnect and isolation and this breakdown and degradation of society that's being told in the stories here. In the music, I think it's really well told. I think that this is actually a standout track as well, especially just how it sounds within the midst of the album itself. So let's move on into the next track. I hope that you guys are enjoying the album listen here. The next track, It Must Have Been Years. Let's go.
You can feel them thinking I've always remembered you with a voice you never dared to
Can I tell you something? I love the riff city that Gary Newman takes us to with tracks like this. These tracks, alright, let's talk about this one though. It's heavy, it's exciting, it's thrilling, it's like this hard rock edge with this, of course, very dystopian vibe going alongside it. The bass, bum, ba-dum, bum. At first I thought it was going to be another slow track, like the title. But no, it was bum, ba-dum, bum. And then all of a sudden, wah, boom, ba-dum, bum. That's really, really good. That's fun. This is a good album. Hold on, let me back it up real quick. I actually want to come back. Alright, so correct me if I'm wrong, and there's always a chance I'm wrong. The guitar in there, the tone that he's using there, is that... Oh god, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Flanger? One of those is right, but because I said both, it sounds really bad. Flanger? I think that's the tone that he's using there. And I like how, like, yes, throughout the album he's used that alongside the synth, which they match incredibly well together. But even without it, like just on its own, it gives this kind of unique echoey reverb to the sound. It adds a lot of room to the music itself too, especially with the way the bass is playing underneath them. That's like a nice hard rock vibe. I love the way the drums are being played there as well. And I like how long the riff plays when it has its long side. Like the riff can play short, bum, 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 bum. But then other times it has the tail end, which is this part. And I like how Newman comes in vocally alongside that tail end. It's like taking the tail off of a shrimp, but this time we're leaving the tail on the shrimp. Anyways, it's a nice cocktail that's being served up. And then here, I thought that was really cool. The way that the guitar held that long note, sustained it for a long time, that bass pattern came back in, that was very monochromatic, and then gave it some space, gave it some space, gave it some space. Wow, come right back in. So heavy, so hard, hitting you right in the face like a salmon to a bear. Anyways, a radio plays White Christmas. It's been doing that for years. I love that line already. It sets you up so perfectly with the scenery, with the setting. The radio's playing White Christmas. Oh, it must be December. It must be Christmas time. That's happy. It's been doing that for years. Oh, well, back to Desolation and Dystopian. If somebody leaves the station, please don't talk to strangers. Don't you see they're not like us? The vacant flesh of UDs stand leaning on the walls. You can feel them thinking over ways of merging with the thoughts you never dared to dream. It must have been years. They want to relive all my memories. Give me the service daily. Maybe it was mother. I can't seem to remember much at all these days. Picture open doorways, no pickups by the taxi boys, just a bed near the window and an old lamp by my pillow. And the things I have to do, which is kind of, once again, reminiscent of the album cover a little bit. It's not a lamp, but there is a light up there. The driver wants to touch me. He mentions all the old cop BS. I try to back away, but he's so strong I just can't move. Maybe I don't want to anyway. The time to leave is always soon. I wonder if I'm lying. A vague feeling of panic as a man leaves, saying thank you. I blame it all on you. So we had the outburst in the previous track. And perhaps he's being taken in. Okay, I have a question. Going with this concept, and maybe I haven't followed something, is he one of these androids? Because now he's kind of stepped out of line with that outburst he had before in the story, and now they're bringing him in, like he said, for service. He even gets taken advantage of on the way and assaulted. Interesting. Really interesting. It must have been years. Interesting. So perhaps at one point there was a happiness to it. You know, when he's talking about White Christmas playing on it, on the radio. Maybe the androids and him have been gifted to people at one point. Maybe at one time there was some sort of joy, some sort of happiness, but now it's decayed. He talks about the vacant flesh of UDs, which I don't know what UD means. I imagine that's an abbreviation for something within this realm, within this story. I don't think that would actually be a thing. I can do a little Google real quick just to make sure. Definitely not the University of Dallas or the University of Delaware. What could it be? I don't know. But that's kind of what I'm getting. Like, he acted out of line. He's an android, a robot. He's supposed to follow the laws. What is it? Asimov's laws? And he needs to be serviced. He needs to be fixed, so to speak. Interesting. The story just keeps on getting deeper and deeper. Let's move on to the next track here, which is going to be When the Machines Rock. Let's rock out with them. Love this little break. Okay, now that definitely felt like craft work. That definitely had to have some influence. In my voice cracked. That definitely had to have had some influence. Newman must have heard a little bit of Kraftwerk and said, "I like that. Well, I want to do a little bit of that." But regardless, it still has a very, very easygoing catchiness to it. The shifts between the music, there's basically two parts of it: the bouncy and happy, frolicking, which also has, once again, like I mentioned during the track, like a very machine-like feeling, like being in an assembly line. And I don't know for sure, but perhaps this is relating to where our titular character, not really titular character, but our main character is getting fixed. Maybe this is him being serviced. So it goes from this assembly line, perhaps they're working on circuits on his brain, they're opening him up, they're doing their things, and the music really envelops that. Then it gets into that long, kind of more mellow part where the music opens up, just held notes. I kind of imagine that as like the part of him that is trying to hold on to the memories, to the experiences that he's experienced. Like he's trying to hold on to that. You could argue that humanity, those memories, those feelings and emotions that he's been able to capture through his experiences outside, which remember was the whole thing, like getting outside. But then it returns to the which I don't know why this is the what I gotta do, but it reminds me of like the machines that like when they're like coming down like and they're like fixing. You know what I mean. Anyways, that's what I kind of feel is happening in this track, which I guess even instrumentally you could argue the whole loss of identity as, in my interpretation of a first listen, that is what's happening right now. The erasure of memory, the erasure of him. So when the machines rock, I don't think it's him, the machine, like the androids. I think it's just my imagination. It's just the machines like the assembly line machines that are fixing and servicing him. I don't know. Hey, let's get into the last track, which is I Nearly Married a Human. I don't know. I don't know why, but that song title just has kind of a funny... There's something to it. Let's go. Fat piece. And so the album ends with this long form instrumental electronic piece that, once again, at least to me, reminds me a little bit of Kraftwerk. I'm kind of mixed on this track as a closing piece. Because on one hand, I feel like it goes on just a little bit too long and it is a little bit repetitive and it doesn't say a lot. But on the other hand, I actually do like the atmosphere as a sense of closure and as ending this epic story that we just got, because there was a lot of exposition. There were a lot of hard riffs, bombast synths, fun and punky drumming and bass. Like there was a lot going on throughout the rest of this album that, on the other hand, this feels kind of like a nice little rest and a nice way of coming down after everything that happened in the album, especially with a lot of dark subject matter. And I don't even think that this is a happy ending. Even as an instrumental, I think it's still continuing this story. And perhaps he was wanting this attachment and this feeling with a person, with a human, but now that, as far this is my interpretation, how I see things and how I hear it. Now that he has been serviced, fixed, memories erased, and experiences gone, the title or the name of the track, I Nearly Married a Human. Now he's been, in a sense, brainwashed to think that it was a mistake when perhaps it was a happy thing that he was searching for. It was a happiness he was in need of. So now they've taken away that desire, that need. And it's kind of a sad ending. At least, once again, this is my headcanon. This may not be the exact story or theme or whatever that he's going for, but just based on what I'm feeling, I think this is a very sad ending to this kind of touching story. This would make a really cool movie. Or I guess like he was writing a short story, actually. The track itself just kind of evenly paces itself along. Once again, very catchy synths, very bouncy. It's kind of repetitive. Nothing in it really stands out. I'll be honest. Nothing in it stands out to me that much, except just that melody, which just keeps repeating over and over. I do think that there's a sense of, once again, loss. I think that there's a sadness beneath it, because while it does have a lot of bouncy and kind of fun moments within it, especially the rhythm, I think that is still kind of melancholy. You know, yeah, there's a sense of finality, but it's not a sense of happiness, and it's not happiness that's been found by the character. I don't know. So on one hand, like, I like it, I guess, thematically, how it ends the album. I like the ambience of it and the atmosphere of it, the way that it ends the album. But the track itself, I don't particularly care for. So take that as you will. Basically, you can decide up for your own interpretation how I felt about that track in, you know, in the totality of it, basically. But thank you guys for recommending this album. This was really fun to listen to, and I especially just like experiencing new music. This is an album that I've had on my mind to listen to for a long time. I've had the cover ready to go for this video and everything for such a long time. So thank you guys for the encouragements and the guidance in where to start, what to listen to. Gary Newman, Tubeway Army, and who knows where we'll go from there. I know that a lot of his solo work as well had been recommended, but I kind of wanted to see where he started with the band and everyone, you know? And I really do like this album overall. My favorite tracks are definitely going to be Down in the Park, though. Down in the Park and I think Our Friends Electric are easily my favorite tracks off the album on a first listen. I'd have to give it a few more listens to, you know, really solidify that. But, you know, that's how first listens and reactions go. But anyways, seriously, thank you guys for watching the video. I hope that you enjoyed watching it alongside with me. Don't forget, you can, of course, and I would implore you and ask you even, to like the video before you leave, because it definitely helps a lot. Tells the YouTubes that people like you want to see more content like this. You can also share the video wherever you have any sort of social media. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you made it this far, I'd be like, just subscribe. You might as well get this far in the video. You can follow me on Twitter. You can support myself and the channel on Patreon in what I'm doing here. But otherwise, I hope that you enjoyed your time here. I hope it was time well spent. Thank you guys so much for recommending the album, for sticking along with me, for hanging around, and hanging out alongside me. And I'll see you guys later. Bye.